Yes, fine.
ماشي.
Mhm. Oh, that's what he sent me.
Hold on. All right. What else is this? Hold on,
Someone else told me, but I thought they meant COVID. It's not three, it's four. Um, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين، اللهم اجعلنا منهم. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا متقبلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم، لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم، له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض. من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه، يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم، ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء. وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد، لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. اللهم أنت ربي لا إله إلا أنت، خلقتني وأنا عبدك وأنا على عهدك ووعدك ما استطعت، أعوذ بك من شر ما صنعت. أبوء لك بنعمتك علي وأبوء بذنبي فاغفر لي فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من الهم والحزن والعجز والكسل والجبن والبخل وضلع الدين وغلبة الرجال. اللهم إنا نسألك العافية في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إنا نسألك العفو والعافية في ديننا ودنيانا وأهلنا وأموالنا. اللهم استر عوراتنا وآمن روعاتنا. اللهم احفظنا من بين أيدينا ومن خلفنا وعن أيماننا وعن شمائلنا ومن فوقنا، ونعوذ بعظمتك أن نغتال من تحتنا. أصبحنا وأصبح الملك لله والحمد لله، لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير. ربنا نسألك خير ما في هذا اليوم وخير ما بعده، ونعوذ بك من شر ما في هذا اليوم وشر ما بعده. ربنا نعوذ بك من الكسل وسوء الكبر. ربنا نعوذ بك من عذاب في النار وعذاب في القبر. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد نبيا. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. سبحان الله وبحمده سبحان الله وبحمده. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير. سبحان الله الحمد لله الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما صليت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما باركت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. استغفر الله واتوب اليه. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. Take it away. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. I will be discussing the dua known as Sayyid al-Istighfar. اللهم أنت ربي لا إله إلا أنت خلقتني وأنا عبدك وأنا على عهدك ووعدك ما استطعت. أعوذ بك من شر ما صنعت. أبوء لك ذنبي فاغفر لي فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت. This dua is very important and powerful. As the Prophet ﷺ tells us, and you can see in bottom down here, it says it is the most superior manner of seeking forgiveness, and it begins very beautifully. Allah said, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Allahumma anta Rabbi la ilaha illa ant." Oh Allah, you are my Lord, and there is nothing, absolutely nothing, except you worthy of worship. The word ilah linguistically means كل ما اتخذ معبودا بغير حق أو بحق أو بغير حق. Anything whatsoever taken as a deity or something that is worshipped, whether rightfully or not rightfully. However, its meaning goes way beyond this. The word ilah includes, as we know, بحق أو بغير حق. So whether that thing that we are worshiping is deserving of it or not. And this includes one way that, like, I understand it is it includes our desires and worshiping our desires, and that which shaitan pulls us towards and attracts us towards, as Allah says in the Quran, وَلَا تَتَّبِعِ الْهَوَى فَيُضِلَّكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Do not follow the desires, for they will deviate you and take you away from the path of Allah. وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ. Do not follow and be attracted towards the tricks of shaitan. Whenever we commit a sin, it is in reality because of these effects, because of the effects of shaitan, and because of the corruption he's caused to our hearts. So remembering Allah and always remembering and beginning with Allah and affirming that belief in Him is very important. Even in the smallest and most insignificant of scenarios, like if I'm just sitting on the couch scrolling through Instagram, or I don't know, watching a basketball game or something, am I just watching the game and doing nothing else, or maybe I'm doing some dhikr on the side, or maybe I limit the time I do that and spend a portion of that time reading Quran. So just making sure we remind ourselves that Allah is the only ma'bud. The second part, La ilaha illa anta. Sorry, the second part begins with خلقتني. Oh Allah, you created me. أخرجتني من ظهر آدم. You extracted me from the back of Adam. خلقتني من طين. You created me from dirt and clay. فكيف أعبد أحدا غيرك. How is it possible, how is it befitting of me to worship anybody else? It's not logical whatsoever to even imagine worshiping something else, which is why the next part is وَأَنَا عَبْدُكَ. And I am your slave. I owe you my complete servitude and obedience, gratitude, praise, and thanks. Which leads to the next part of it, also connected, وَأَنَا عَلَىٰ عَهْدِكَ وَوَعْدِكَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُ. I am under your covenant and pledge to the best of my ability. I, to the best of my ability, will do everything I can and everything you have told me to do, that in order to give you your due right as my Lord, and so that you can grant me Jannah in the next life.
So I completely devote myself to you, and thus will do everything I have been told to do and more to the best of my ability through faith and sincerity. Because you, O Allah, know that I am a human being and I slip up, which is why that part in there is mastata'tu. And the next part continues, وَأَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنْ شَرِّ مَا صَنَعْتُ. I seek your refuge from every evil thing I have done, I have created. Because we as human beings, uh, although the qadr of Allah, nothing happens without the qadr of Allah, of course, but are as human beings are the causes of bad things that happen. Just as the malaika responded to Allah and said, like, oh Allah, these people, this creation of yours, all they're gonna do is cause bloodshed and just cause trials and tribulations across the earth. So أعوذ بك من شر, I seek refuge in you from myself and that which I created in further evil and have done. أبوء لك بنعمتك علي. I acknowledge and I appreciate every blessing that you have bestowed upon me, from food, from clothing, from shelter, and most importantly from Iman and Islam. And وأبوء بذنبي, and I affirm and I recognize and I confess to you my sins. The word boat is very interesting. It means aqarra or i'tarafa, like recognizing, affirming, and confessing something. So we're telling Allah, oh Allah, I realize as I've been making dua, as we begin our dua, oh Allah, I am weak. I am your servant. You're the only one deserving of my worship. Everything I do should be in order to fulfill that which you have told me to do. And you continue to bestow your blessings upon me. However, Ya Allah, I keep slipping up. Ya Allah, I'm weak. I continue to slip up. And this is the crux of the dua, because the dua, as we know, is known as Sayyidul Istighfar, the highest level or the most superior manner of seeking forgiveness. So, oh Allah, I confess to you my sins because you continue to bless me. You're the only one deserving of all the worship and gratitude, and yet I still slip up. So, faghfirli. So Allah, forgive me. Ya Allah, I can't do anything, and I am not deserving of this forgiveness. But Ya Allah, you're the most merciful. You are Al-Ghafur Rahim. So Ya Allah, I beg you to forgive me. Oh Allah, forgive my sins, cleanse my heart, give me the strength and ability to refrain from disobedience and overcome the tests and trials that come my way. فَإِنَّهُ لَا يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ إِلَّا أَنْتَ. Because Allah, you are the only one who can forgive my sins. And I am not deserving of this mercy. But Ya Allah, I'm not perfect. I'm going to continue to slip up. And I am not capable of being forgiven by anybody else. Although, like when we take the rights of somebody else, of course, we have to seek their forgiveness. But ultimately, the forgiveness comes from Allah. And Ya Allah, I'm trying to enter your Jannah. I don't want to be punished in the next life, Ya Allah. I'm doing my best, and I will continue to do my best to give myself in complete obedience to you. So Allah, please forgive my sins and cleanse my heart through your infinite mercy, your bounty, and kindness. And we'll conclude with the hadith that's mentioned down here. وعن شداد ابن أوس رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: سيد الاستغفار أن تقول اللهم أنت ربي لا إله إلا أنت خلقتني وأنا عبدك وأنا على عهدك ووعدك ما استطعت أعوذ بك من شر ما صنعت أبوء لك بنعمتك علي وأبوء بذنبي فاغفر لي فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت. ومن قالها من النهار مقينا بها فمات من يومه قبل أن يمسي فهو من أهل الجنة. ومن قالها من الليل وهو مقيم بها فمات قبل أن يصبح فهو من أهل الجنة. رواه البخاري. From Shaddad ibn Aus radiallahu anhu said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the most superior manner of seeking forgiveness is by saying, Allahumma anta rabbi, oh Allah, you are my Lord. La ilaha illa ant, there is nothing worthy of worship except for you. Khalaqtani, you created me. Wa ana abduk, and I am your slave. Wa ana ala ahdika wa wa'dika mastata'at, and I am under your covenant and pledge to the best of my ability, and I will do my absolute best to fulfill it. أعوذ بك من شر ما صنعت. I seek your protection from all the evil that I have done and continue to do as an imperfect creation. أبوء لك بنعمتك علي. I acknowledge, appreciate, and thank you for all the blessings you have bestowed upon me. وأبوء بذنبي, and I admit to you and I confess to you my sins. فاغفر لي, so Allah forgive me. فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت, because nobody can forgive us and forgive me except for you. And in the end of the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever says this during the day with complete firm belief and dies upon that, like they say it in the morning and die upon that, meaning they died before the evening, then they will be from the people of Jannah. And whoever says it at night and dies before the morning, then they will also be from the people of Jannah. It is narrated from Bukhari. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from those who internalize and really think about this dua, and make us from among those who constantly seek his forgiveness and repent to him. Ameen. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على خير خلقه محمد والحمد لله رب العالمين.
What would be every definition for enough?
فإله كل معبود لنا معبودا بحق أو بغير حق.
I noticed when it says properly it took the only one. So from creation to the creator, would you have an idea like why did it take the only one instead of like the Raja and
Instead
from
of
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like the Raja and the whole,
instead of Raja and Hope,
yeah, like it's properly, it sounded like it's a kind of
Yeah.
instead of like saying it in a manner of like Raja and hope and fear. And it's fine.
or when we make dua, we're using the very correct me if I'm wrong, but we're using the very animal, but it's out of respect. When we're saying it's out of respect, so we're still asking out of Raja. So Allah, please forgive me. It's not commanding of Allah, forgive me. If we have no right to do things.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I'm just thinking about because of the Arab marriage. Like the Arab.
all dua is fi'l amr.
It's not like, no, I didn't know this. Right? So it's not necessarily fine.
Like sighatan, it's amr.
Still like,
Yeah.
another job. Right? Like it's another job.
Depending on who says it to who and the tone, then that changes the technical ask. Allah uses the sighatul amr when he speaks to us, aqimus salah or aqimus salah. That's literally sighatul amr. When I say faghfirli, that's literally sighatul amr. But what the expectation is, what the demand is, or what the ask or request is dictated by who is speaking to who, and also the tone in which it is done. And so even sometimes sighatul amr isn't even an amr at all. Sometimes it's like taqriyah, like a challenge, like go bring another surah. Like it's not an actual go ahead, I'm commanding you, go bring another surah. Like it's, yeah, go ahead, we'll see what happens. Right? It's like telling a student to like get out of class. Hey, the teacher's not actually telling him most of the time to get out of the class. It's sit down, be quiet, stop acting like this. Does that make sense? Mimicry. Context then? The one doing it. Do I have to put it out of here? Not about that. Yes, but Like for example, these are all صيغة الأمر. ربي أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي. ربي أعني. والله help me do your shukr. ربي لا تذرني فردا. Oh Allah, do not leave me alone. It's a صيغة الأمر, but it's not meant to be a command. Sometimes Amr is also command. إذا تداينتم بدين إلى أجل مسمى فاكتبوه. Allah says when you have a contract, when there's a debt, then write it down. According to the vast majority of fuqaha, this doesn't mean it's wajib for you to write down a contract. Saying it's for your own benefit in this world. Go ahead and do it. Or Allah, He says, لا تسألوا عن أشياء تبد لكم تسؤكم. Don't ask about those things that if you were to know their answer, it would harm you. It's not it is haram for you to do this. It is, why would you do that? Or tahdid. اعملوا ما شئتم. Fine, do whatever you want. Or فَمَنْ شَاءَ مِنْكُمْ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. Allah, somebody can read, Allah literally used lamul amr. Allah commanded me to do kufr. So I'm obeying Allah by doing kufr. The point is not to actually do kufr. It's like a slap in the face. فَأْدُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِثْلِهِ. It's ta'jeez, like you're never going to do it. Or ihana, like قُلْ كُونُوا حِجَارَةً أَوْ حَدِيدًا. Oh fine, yeah, really? Inshallah, you want to go be a rock? Enjoy. Go be a rock, I'm waiting. Try. قال اخسأوا فيها ولا تكلمون. Go and just be humiliated, ruined, and don't even talk. Or sometimes إباحة. كلوا واشربوا حتى يتبين لكم الخيط الأبيض من الخيط الأسود من الفجر. If somebody says, I have to eat up until Fajr Adhan. Technically, if you read the ayah, if you take it as صيغة الأمر, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا, eat and drink until the black thread becomes a white thread. The literal hukm of that would be, if you take it as amr, al-amru lil-wujub would be, I have to eat right until Fajr time comes in. Right? انظر كيف ضربوا لك الأمثال. Right? Allah is not saying, my Prophet, look, you have to look. If you don't look, you'll be sinful. It's, check it out. Like, what are they doing? Does it help put usul fiqh a little bit into a little more perspective? But for Hanafis, the default, because language is supposed to be clear. Hanafi's language is clear. If every time amr can mean something else, then what's the point of having an amr? So for Hanafi, default is al-amr al-wujub. Unless there's something that takes you out of that. Huh? But dua cannot even be that, because it's not from somebody who is a'la to asfal. Right? Because that cannot be al-amr al-wujub. Because I cannot command Allah to do something and make it wajib on Allah. Yeah.
I think we talked about this idea of making that like you don't ask us about what you can if he's doing it, or like because you don't want to like belittle his ability, and you don't question that he thinks for if you're not because you're asking them the way of not believing that, but like when he did keep it up.
Yeah, and there's a hadith with some weakness in it. وَدُعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَنْتُمْ مُوقِنُونَ بِالْإِجَابَةِ. Make dua to Allah and be muqin, be certain that Allah will respond. That's why, and He says specifically in a Sahih hadith, don't say in shi'ta. فَغْفِرْ لِي إِن شِئْتَ. Do not say that. Do not say that. Because like if you ask Allah, you're asking Allah, why? Because you want Him to do it. You know He can do it. Right? So when you ask properly. Anything else? You okay? Yeah, I'll put it in our class. I'll do it after. Any random tangents you want to go on before we get into our book? Didn't you say you had some random things you wanted to talk about? You want to save them for the end?
Yeah, I have to recap in my head.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Abdurrahman, can you read for us?
Etiquettes within the home, removing your shoes when entering the house of your host, or even your own home. Be gentle in your manner of entering and leaving. Lower your eyes and voice. You should take off your shoes at an appropriate spot and set them in an orderly fashion. Do not forget the etiquette of wearing and removing shoes. Put on the right shoe first and remove the left one first. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when you put on your shoes, begin with the right, and when removing them, begin with the left, so that the right shoe be the first to be put on and the last to be taken off. Sahih Muslim. Before entering,
In the Arabic, إذا انتعل أحدكم فليبدأ باليمين وإذا نزع فليبدأ بالشمال لتكن اليمنى أولهما تنعل وآخرهما تنزع. This Arabic is from Bukhari, but I think the one in Sahih Muslim is pretty much the same.
So,
Both. This is slight wording difference.
before entering your house or that of your brother, inspect your shoes. If they are dirty, remove the dirt or wipe the shoes against the ground. Islam is a religion of cleanliness and courtesy.
And again, doing something like, putting on your right shoe, your right sock first, your right arm through your clothes first. These are things that may seem small, but these are things, if done with the proper intention, with the proper mindset, will fill and breed, the love of the Sunnah into our hearts. It'll help us prioritize, help us refocus to be Ashabul Yameen, of being people of the right, people who prioritize the right side, people who are from the right side, and be more in line, more close to those people that clearly follow the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's a story of Shaykh Yunus rahimahullah that towards the end of his life, he got very old and weak, and so he would be on a wheelchair, and sometimes his students would put on his socks and shoes for him, and his students would say, if we accidentally touch his left foot first, he would gently smack us and say, when are you gonna start loving the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Actually, no, he really said, why do you keep living your life in the baghawat? Why do you keep living your life, violating the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
Do not argue with your host regarding the place where he wants you to sit. Rather, sit where he asks you to. If you sit where you want to, you may accidentally look into a private area of the house, or you may cause inconvenience to the house inmates. Therefore, it is important to adhere to the suggestion of your host and accept his cordial treatment towards you.
So realize this is translated by people in South Africa. That's why they keep saying inmates. It's not our word. I guess that's just how they talk about people inside of the house, inmates.
Ibn Kathir rahimahullah ta'ala has recorded in Al-Bidayah wa Nihayah that when the honored companion Sayyidina Adi ibn Hatim that
Al-Ta'i
reverted to Islam and came to see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Medina. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam honored him by seating him on a cushion while he himself sat on the floor. Sayyidina Adi radiallahu anhu says, then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam took me along, and upon reaching his house, he took a leather cushion filled with palm fiber and threw it on the floor. Sit on this, he said. No, you sit on it, I answered. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam insisted, no, you. So I sat on it while the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sat on the floor.
Again, the whole point of this is wherever the host tells you to sit, is where you should sit.
Once Sayyidina Kharijah ibn Zayd radiallahu anhu,
Shaykh rahimahullah, he's a tabi'i, he's the son of Zayd ibn Thabit. I was just so confused as to who is speaking to who in here. Then I just realized they accidentally put radiallahu anhu. He's rahimahullah, he's the son of Zayd ibn Thabit, so he's much younger than Ibn Sirin.
Sayyidina Kharijah ibn Zayd rahimahullah ta'ala visited Imam ibn Sirin rahimahullah. He found Imam ibn Sirin sitting on a cushion on the floor, and he, Kharijah, also wanted to sit together with him on the floor, saying, I am content as you are. Imam ibn Sirin rahimahullah replied, in my home, I do not prefer for you what I prefer for myself, since you deserve to be honored. sit where you are asked to sit. Do not sit on the host's seat unless he asks you to. For our master, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, no guest should lead the host in salah, while in the home of the host, neither should he sit without consent at the designated seat of the host. Something Muslim.
لا يؤمن الرجل في سلطانه ولا يقعد في بيته على تكريمته إلا بإذنه. And yeah, unless he gives permission. Just like with seating, no, I want you to sit here. You can sit in my spot. Sure, no problem. Or you can lead, or I want you to lead. No problem. And even in that, listen to what the host tells you to do. If the host tells you lead salah, the host just told you, so you lead salah.
Inspection. When you enter the home of your brother or friend, whether as a visitor or an overnight guest, do not closely examine its contents as an inspector would. Limit your gaze during your stay to what you need to see. Do not open closets or boxes. Do not inspect a wallet, a package, or a covered object. This is against Islamic manners and an impolite betrayal of the trust of your host. Betrayal of the trust your host has accorded to you by allowing you to enter his home and reside therein. Be polite, for this would cultivate love and respect for you in the heart of your host. May Allah protect you and take care of you.
Within this is also someone lets you borrow their car, someone lets you borrow their phone, someone lets you use their laptop, right? Don't be like, hey, my phone's dead, can I use your phone? And then you start like looking through their pictures, or whatever. Or somebody lets you borrow their laptop, you need to, send an assignment or whatever. Right? Don't go like looking, oh, what are your bookmarks? What are all your tabs that are open? What else you got open? Right? Do not do things that is, you were not given permission to look at those things, and so you're not allowed to look at those things, and then that can be considered to be a type of spying and peering into what you are not allowed to look at.
If they're okay with it, like open fridge and stuff like that, or
Whatever is your urf and custom that you're okay with. If it's like, yeah, by all means, go ahead, go in the fridge, take whatever food you want, use the microwave. If you want to make yourself a whole meal, I don't really care,
Right.
By their permission, yeah. By their permission, or whatever the comfort level is,
Timing your visit. Use an appropriate time for your visit. Do not visit at inconvenient times such as meal times or when people are sleeping, resting, or relaxing. The length of your visit should be in accordance with your relationship with the host, with your hosts, as well as in accordance to their circumstances and conditions. Do not overstay your welcome by making your visit too long or burdensome. Imam al-Nawawi, rahimahullah, says in his book, Al-Adkar, it is strongly recommended for Muslims to visit pious people, brothers, neighbors, friends, and relatives, and to be generous, kind, and obliging to them. However, the duration of the visit varies according to the host's circumstances. The visit ought to be conducted in a pleasant manner and at times convenient to them. There are a number of ahadith and sayings in this regard.
Again, not going, too late. Also just keeping in mind, depending on the household, how close they are to the masjid, how often you would assume them to go to the masjid, trying not to go at prayer times, or acknowledging or knowing that, hey, what time do you pray at the masjid? Can I come before or after, and not take you away from that?
When you address your host, only discuss appropriate topics together with maintaining brevity in your speech. If you are the youngest in the gathering, then you should only speak when responding to a question posed to you by someone, unless you are certain that your input will be effective. Leave an impression and that it will please those parents.
Present.
And it will please those present. Do not be lengthy in your speech, neither should you be careless in your sitting posture and manner of address.
And one more thing about time, again, also just asking people, we talked about this last week about, asking people, can I come? And then also letting them know about, how important or not important it is for the reason that you're coming. If it's more important, maybe that's assumed to be, hey, this is a longer conversation, then maybe explicitly or implicitly implying this will be longer, And if we're going to somebody's house who, I don't know, maybe has elderly parents or has young children that they need to put to sleep, so they're not going at, 10 p.m. and they're like 7-year-old is like, crying because they're 2 hours past their bedtime, just being aware of those things. And again, just nothing wrong in being just clear and honest. Or just like, hey, I can only come at this time. I know you might be putting your kids to sleep by that time. Should I come another time? Can I come another day? You let me know what works for you, or you let me know I can come after, you've done whatever you need to do at home and the like. Also, again, just a matter of, sitting and the like. I don't know if that's an issue, but I would definitely highly emphasize, at least to the gentleman, that if there are women around, then again, our posture, the way we stand and sit, more so sit and lean back, and all those things should be done in an appropriate manner, so that we're not sitting in an immodest way or anything and they seem inappropriate. And when it comes to the, all these concepts about what you talk about, again, just be mature about these things. There are some things maybe a guy only wants to talk to a guy about, or a girl only wants to talk to a girl about. But if you go to somebody's house and both the man and woman are there, again, just keep in mind, who the audience is, who's there, who can listen, what you do and don't want to talk about in front of other people. You good? Okay, continue.
I actually, okay, I ran into a situation where I felt like I speak at the window. So the conversation was open, and it wasn't like this person was saying something directly to me. There was like a group of like 8 people, and it was just a conversation talking about a certain. And I listened, just like everybody did, but I had my opinion about it that differed from what they were saying. Was it appropriate for me to like say it, like try your best in a kind manner, or kind of like I had to argue, to be honest, like, wait, why did you do that? Or something about that's gonna be done in the message. And I'm like, I feel like a message has its karma. Like no matter what, that should not be done at a message. And the discussion was like, no, this is gonna be done at the gate of the message outside, and I'm like, it's still in the message. So is it wrong to do that? Like I mean, the other person maybe didn't accept it, and then after a few minutes, they're like, no, I didn't think of it like that. Yeah, I think I don't know. See what to do, but I was just like, then I felt bad later on, like maybe I should say.
I mean, if they, I think what you just described, if they seem to have gotten you insight after what you said, but yeah, it seems like the way you said it and what you said was appropriate.
I think it charts. I just kind of like, I felt like in that matter, messages they're known to do a certain role, right? And I felt like, well, if we're gonna start doing that in the message, it might bring in a new role or a new habit or a new tradition that shouldn't be introduced to the message. I just felt like they were falling into that picture. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I wasn't, as an outsider, I didn't want to see that. So
yeah, that's a great point, particularly to put it in line to what our author rahimahullah said. Unless you're certain that your input will be effective, which it was, it will leave an impression, which it did, and it will please those who are present. Even if they don't immediately like it, they kind of liked it after the fact. And even if they don't accept it, just giving people food for thought. As long as the manner in which it's done is appropriate, and the environment of discussion is a discussion that you are included in. Right. So for example, sometimes there are, a bunch of scholars that are having a conversation, or a bunch of, whatever, doctors, lawyers, whatever, and there's just some like random person just sitting in the room, right? They should be like doubly, triply question themselves if they have pushback, like, do I just like, actually, I know you're all the experts, but I know nothing about this. Let me actually come and say something. Like you need to be really confident in what you're saying. And if there's ever just, the individual feels this is really not my place, and sometimes people should feel that, like, this is not my environment to speak up in. Again, just due to respect, due to who, like, whether they're included in the main discussion or just included, as a second party, right? Then in that case, still, the point would not be don't say anything. The point would just be maybe after the fact, go and tell somebody.
To face the situation, I even told the person, I don't feel like this is my place to say, but I'm gonna say because it's my opinion. And because I have my boys and my daughter who wanna do things out of masjid, people like get married, I don't think it's appropriate this to be done at a masjid. I feel like you're opening windows that should not be open, out of fear of like normalizing things that shouldn't be normalized. And the thing is, the next starts talking to you, they'll be like, okay, why do you say this? Why would you speak? You shouldn't just stay quiet. So there's that fine line of when should you speak and when should you not speak? Because then I want not to care. Like if you don't like me because I said something, that's okay. That's your choice. But like at the end of the day, I don't want to create.
لكل مقام مقال. Every place has, the appropriate thing to say, and with everything just should be done with hikmah. And we're all responsible, mature adults, and we can judge a situation. There are times when, recently, I have been included in, like the SoCal scholars kind of, their groups and discussions and hangouts, and like I just don't say anything. They're all my teachers. It's only if there's like a major pressing thing, or we're kind of in a less serious discussion now, that I'll kind of, say stuff, or unless I'm asked, right? And just being aware of that environment. And I'm not saying what I'm doing is necessarily right or the best thing, right? But that's what I've chosen to do. And there are other people like, what, if I don't speak up, no one's going to bring these counterpoints. No one's going to challenge the status quo of this certain discussion. And so there's always two sides to consider, and the like.
Like some like gatherings where because someone and you're talking about is for example not appropriate and you know it's you saying something will really make a difference. Do you have to do like do anything good for it matter? That's not like you just it's just not it.
Ideally, it should be done in some way. من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده. فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه فإن لم يستطع فبقلبه. Right? If you can physically change it, you should. If you can say something, again, you should. And if you're really worried, like, hey, if I say something, this will turn into a whole other giant mess, then hate it with your heart. But even hate it with your heart, it should be, what would I like plan to do something? I'll say that, but at the same time, there are perhaps some things that we can do where we may not say or do something, but we may not have said something, we have subtly done something in which people will recognize that, oh wait, something happened, right? Just like there's a certain manner in which we can leave. Like, something happens, just like, all right, I'm out of here, maybe not, if they're elders, maybe not in the most disrespectful way, but just with the tiniest little drop of, I'm leaving because I'm disapproving, right? In so which case you have done something, you've put a thought into the minds of people without directly hurting people. And again, every situation, has its more and less appropriate things, and use wisdom in all those cases.
You're sitting in the gallery and you learned something, like say in seminary or in my school, I learned things and I'm more like knowledgeable than people sitting not mine. And I hear them saying some stuff that's wrong, but I choose not to say anything. Because I used to talk a lot before, now I talk less, and I'm like, this is what they believe, let them believe what they want to believe. I don't want to interact with this person. And am I wrong doing that? Should I say to someone, because I know if I open the subject, they will like, oh no, you know, so I choose not to talk. Which one is better, is to say what you know is correct or to keep them the way they are?
Everything has wisdom. It's honestly most of these questions, that's the answer. Everything has wisdom. A couple things to keep in mind, we're not going to be held accountable the way the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is, in which he has to do bayan al-hukm. Absolutely, he has to say what is right and what is wrong. That's the whole reason why taqreed is an aspect of hadith, that he saw something and he did not do inkar. Because by definition, his role, if he sees something that is wrong, he has to say something.
But let's say it's not something I'm practicing. So sometimes people love talking about diet and food and things like that. And sometimes I hear them saying some stuff wrong. And it's not haram or halal at this point. Should I just
Yeah, that I would say your burden to speak up is way lower. If you want to, no problem. Do so in a nice, kind manner. And if I say something, this 5-minute conversation would be like a 3-hour, like, just save it. Just save it. But you're saving yourself headache too, right? Yeah. And even when it comes to religious things, right? The more we learn, we'll realize, there are differences of opinion and things like this. And so there are people who are saying something that's like, it's fine. It may not be the best thing, but it's okay. And if you say something, this will turn into just a whole hodgepodge. Let it go. But if I would say, if there are people that you're closer to, then maybe, especially in a religious thing, then after that, just be like, hey, you know what? I think I heard something like this. This is the more appropriate, thing to do, or maybe this is not something to bring up or talk about. Again, if you're closer to somebody and they were saying things that, maybe are okay, but maybe borderline questionable. Anything else?
Greeting together. When you enter a room, first greet everyone inside. If you want to shake hands with those present, begin with the most knowledgeable, the most pious, the elder, or those who have similar Islamic distinction. Do not overlook the most distinguished or most eminent, and start with the first on your right.
And this is like, do not overlook the fadil by going to the people on the right.
If you cannot decide who is the most reputable, or if the present or if those present happen to be of similar status, then start with the elderly, for they are easier to recognize.
Our Shaykh rahimahullah, here he says to start off with the fadil, the people who are more deserving explicitly, even before going to the right. Perhaps he's discussing in an environment in which there's no clear right to left, or he's, for the sake of teaching and instilling respect for people that deserve and have more respect, to single them out. Although the base level sunnah is that you start with the right, even if the person on the left is better. Famous hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had some milk, and on his right was Ibn Abbas, and on his left was Khalid ibn Walid, radiyallahu anhum. And he looked to Ibn Abbas and he said, you're on my right, so technically you have more haqq, but on my left is Khalid, who is older than you. So if you want, I'm asking you first because technically you're in the haqq, but if you want, you can let him have it first because he's older than you. I was like, nah. Ibn Abbas said, no, I would not miss or skip drinking after you drink, and so he drank it for himself. But you see, even the Prophet acknowledging that there's a close fine line between right versus those people that are elders, and so always maintaining that, and perhaps in an environment where it's not a clear right to left, then maybe you go to the elders or those people who are more senior, and then you do a right to left or something along those lines. Was it Yusuf?
Thank you, Sheikh. Sorry, this is like kind of a specific scenario, but at least I'm sure it's the same in most cultures, but like especially Arab culture. If I go to like yesterday, I went to visit my parents' house. My uncles were also there. So it's like, I don't live with my parents, right? But obviously they don't look at me as a guest. So you're like it's kind of like you should greet the guest first, but also like I always kind of hesitate because I'm like, should I go to my dad first or do I go to my uncle first? Because he's, whether he's older or he's the guest. I know maybe it doesn't really matter, but is there in terms of that with your parents, should you go to them before others because they have maybe some more of a right over you? I don't know. Is there something with that, with the order there?
Um, there's always flexibility in this because there's multiple things you're balancing, right? You're balancing who's on the right, who is a guest, who is the host, who is older, who has more right over me. So in that balance of multiple people that you're trying to balance, you can, if you have a good intention and a good game plan about this is why I'm preferring this person, and hopefully, that is doing what is best. Perhaps, just considering proximity or busyness as well. Like if your uncle is right there by the door versus your dad's like, I don't know, all the way on the other side, maybe, it makes sense to greet your uncle. Whereas if it was vice versa, even if it was maybe your grandfather all the way on the other side, like, hey, my dad's right here, let me greet him and then go over there. Just using your best judgment. These aren't necessarily supposed to be just hard and fast rules. Even when you learned about the hadith about doing salam, the rider says salam to a walker, the bigger group says, the smaller group says salam to the smaller group says salam to the bigger group. The youngers say salam to, the elders. But what if you have like a larger group of younger people who are walking, like just using your best judgment.
Jazakallah khair.
I don't remember where I heard it, but it kind of like took me back. It basically said when you enter the gathering, you shouldn't go and shake everybody's.
But that's more just a matter of is takalluf, the Urdu word takalluf, the right word here? It's just like, just like sometimes people are like fully engaged in like a conversation, just like let them enjoy them, like, oh, okay, oh yeah, and then they, just play it by ear. Play. If it's like three people, you're all hanging out, you can easily say salam to everybody. Sure, that's fine. If there's like, 3 tables long of people and you go, salam, so just use your best judgment. Abdul Samad.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. In some of the communities, Sheikh, it's a habit or it's a culture. For example, when somebody enters in the house or masjid or anywhere, when everybody is sitting, so the person who enters, everybody stands for him, whether he is a younger or elder, whatever he is. So is it appropriate according to the religion, for example, standing for someone when he enters, or everybody can sit and shake hand and say salam?
This comes down to culture and what the reason behind it is. So we do have the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he says, when he criticizes those people that stand up for somebody. So that's one hadith. Another hadith is when Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh radiyallahu anhu, he is being brought on a stretcher to give the judgment against Banu Qurayza. The Prophet ﷺ says, "Qumu ila sayyidikum, come and stand up because your leader is here." So you have both aspects that are there. What the maybe a balance, that the scholars have is if it's standing out of love and care, and we want to shake your hand and meet you at your level that you're standing, and hopefully that is fine. It shouldn't be like the way like a formality of, all right, everybody please rise, where it's like a formality of you all have to stand now because this person is here. And so if it's done just out of care, out of love, out of respect, then again, hopefully that is fine. It shouldn't be like a systematic, everybody, stand up. But even then, in some cultures, that is the norm. Like at least in, some of the Darul Ulooms in, India and Pakistan, like when the teacher walks in, everybody stands up. And same thing in like, some of the Arab countries, like in Syria, they'll do the same thing. When the teacher walks in the class, everybody like stands up. Again, hopefully the ideal is done out of, love and respect, as opposed to this person is deserving of, please rise for this individual.
And also, the other question is shaking hand with two hands. Means most of the time in our countries, like in Pakistan and Afghanistan, I saw when you shake hand, especially with elder people, so they don't like shaking hand with one hand. They like you shake hand with two.
Yeah, this is just a matter of culture and preference. I believe it's a tribute to one or a couple of tabi'un, maybe one, who did shake hands that we know, particularly with two hands. And there's a famous, I don't know who the scholar is, but I believe he was a teacher of Sunan Abi Dawud, and he was looking into he was wondering, what do I do? Do I shake with one hand? Do I shake with two hands? What is the sunnah? What would the Prophet ﷺ, what would he have done? And after extensive research, he couldn't make up his mind. And then he saw in a dream, the Prophet ﷺ came and shook his hand with two hands. And so then he said, now I know what I will do. But he saw in a dream, I didn't see it in my dream. So, again, everyone, you take it with your, that's it. No, if somebody does two hands, no issue at all.
In some communities, especially with elder people in Afghanistan, if you shake hand with one hand, they don't like it. They think it's a disrespect, especially with elder people, or for example with the scholars. But with young generation, for example, like people same age with you, then if you shake with one hand, it doesn't matter.
It's one of those things where it could be problematic depending on how it's thought and perceived. But if it's just done like in our culture, this is how we show, a level of respect and care. Then again, hopefully, no problem with that. I know you had your hand up, but like there's another instance in which Zayd ibn Thabit and Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhum were both towards the end of their lives, they were the senior teachers of Medina and Mecca respectively. Ibn Abbas was, one of the main teachers and head scholars of Mecca, and Zayd ibn Thabit was one of the main scholars and teachers of Medina. And as such, they had their differences of opinion, and you can kind of imagine their students would kind of fight each other on behalf of their teachers. Like the students of Ibn Abbas would kind of argue and be like, no, our teacher is right, your teacher is wrong, things like that. But one of their customs was that whenever Zayd ibn Thabit would come to Mecca, Ibn Abbas would come out and he would hold the reins of the animal of Zayd ibn Thabit. And when asked, why do you do this? He said, this is how we treat, our scholars. Right? So like showing that out of my sunnah, my way of honoring scholars is to, hold the reins of their animal and bring them in and, bring them down. And then vice versa, when Ibn Abbas would come to Medina, Zayd ibn Thabit would come and would, kiss his hands. Like this is how we've been taught to treat the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so those are, I think it's best to say, these are, from their cultures and customs and norms. And if people happen to copy that, again, that's fine. It shouldn't be, if it's known and imposed as a culture, okay, that's fine. It shouldn't be known and imposed ideally as a religious injunction. So that's why in some places you'll find, they'll kiss the hands of their teachers. Again, if it's done out of this kind of love and respect, then again, no problem. If it's an expectation from clear religious dictates, then again, maybe that could be an issue. So I just remembered a funny story. I don't remember. I feel like I told this recently. One of our old classmates. I wasn't there, but somebody told me, was like he went and like tried to like kiss the shoe or the sock or the foot of one of our teachers, and then our teacher almost like kicked him in the head, like. Yeah, so if it's done out of love and respect, every culture has their own norms and the like.
So basically where you're saying we can start from our right. I don't know if there's like
Yeah, again, just using best judgment. Sometimes not everything is in a very clear right to left. If it is, go ahead and do that. But sometimes the person on your left is like 3 feet closer to you than the person on your right. So just whatever is easier, simpler, I'd say don't overcomplicate this. Like, don't be like, oh no, like the person in front of me, I shook them before the person on my right. It's like you have to pass this person to get to the person on your right anyway. You know, so don't overcomplicate it. Yeah.
That that's the like loophole.
Mhm.
So that's out of like why that it goes.
Technically says this is how we were taught to respect our scholars.
Because I was because sometimes we use like we use that or this without the public not having doing that thing. As like like that.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's like, oh, there should be this happen, or at least that you are. And it's like I feel like those reasons like
There is clear-cut ritual ibadah, in which case they don't bring in, or we would assume they don't bring in personal preference of like, this is the way I pray. Facing, you know, I don't know, I only pray towards the one corner of the Kaaba. Like, if they did like, great, okay, that's your opinion. That's not what we all do. As opposed to more cultural things, or normal things, or ways. As the entire chapter of adab and adab, there's a lot more leeway in there, and so those things we definitely do take that. Yeah. Yeah, that whole discussion about what is actually Sunanul Huda, what are the things the Prophet ﷺ came to teach us about Allah and Islam and the hereafter, as opposed to those things that are maybe fall under that umbrella, but again, there's some cultural leeway in there, right? Again, the point is respect your elders, right? How exactly that takes place is going to be different, right? Again, the way you treat your mother, the way you treat your father, again, with love, respect. In different cultures, that manifests, differently. Like we just heard, in Afghanistan, you don't shake your dad's hand with two hands. You might get smacked with your other hand. Other places where it's like, you just like, sup, dad. Maybe you shouldn't do that, but like again, there's different, cultural norms and expectations of the same picture of respect and honor.
Me growing up with my parents, like around me, and dad growing up with his mom, and now my children growing up with me, that's just a different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome to the house. And there's, hey, I'm just being, that's probably not
Yeah, and right, that's why, like, the Prophet ﷺ didn't give these things as detailed as he did salah. It's like every house is different, every culture is different, and so putting on these expectations is just not normal. It's not human. It's not going to work. Islam is supposed to function at all times in all places. If you do those things, you're making everyone that generation of Arab. And even then it doesn't work because the customs of the Muhajirun and the Ansar were also different. Right? So already there you have a clash. The Meccans, like, we do it this way. The people of Medina, like, no, we do it this way. The point is honor, respect, care, husband, wife, parents, children, all of those things, there's a level of openness and leeway there. Yeah, like if any American, like me, if I see the way like Arab men hang out with each other in Arab countries, I feel I feel very uncomfortable. Yeah, they hold hands, they hold pinkies, they like you said, the nose thing, like that's not the culture of my people. What he's teaching us is the skeleton, and then from there the particulars, they can be different. So he's teaching us there is an emphasis on, if I'm coming in, greet, no doubt that is from the sunnah. And when there's elders, prioritize them, that is from the sunnah. For doing the right, that is from the sunnah. But when there's a conflict now, then you just have to use your best judgment. So the base, and that's why what he's giving us is very general. Nothing here is this person, then this person, then this person. That's what you'll never find. Greet your mother first, then your father, then your brother, then your sister, then your uncle. It's like, life doesn't work like that. As long as it's within the framework of the adab taught by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As long as you're not, like violating, there's like, I just walked in as a 10-year-old. Everybody walk up, stand up, and come say salam to me. That would be an issue. Whereas things in the middle, again, they're fine.
Yeah, my boys were tripping about. But when you were like, hang out with the guys, and you just like touching and saying hello. It's just like very. So then my son comes and goes to the market and he buys something and he tells the guy, "Jazakallah about fish." The guy kicks his step back and he's like, "What?" Jazakallah khair. And then comes home and he's like, he tripped out because I said Jazakallah khair instead of shukran, but I'm not allowed to chip out.
Shifa, did I answer your question? There's also this entire concept about a part of our religious practice, particularly in the school of the Hanafis and the Malikis in particular, is how did the Sahaba and Tabi'un do things, right? Like a major part. Again, sometimes why people have beef with the Hanafis about not following hadith and the like, is because Hanafis are very clear in, if multiple learned fuqaha of the Tabi'un do something, we will prioritize that over any hadith you have. Because how are they going to go against what their own teachers, the Sahaba, taught them? Right? So for example, for Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik, they know the hadith about fasting 6 of Shawwal is sahih, but they don't do it. Either they say it's bid'ah, or they dislike it because they say, I didn't see Sa'id al-Musayyib fast the 6 days of Shawwal. I didn't see Ibrahim al-Nakha'i fast the 6 days of Shawwal. I didn't see, Alqama. I didn't see, Aswad. I didn't see, list any tabi'i, any faqih. I didn't see any of them fast. So yes, I have a sahih hadith, but if they're not doing it, there's some disconnect here, right? And so they take their practice from those, learned senior fuqaha from the tabi'un and the like. Like I believe Ibrahim al-Nakha'i, who's like the grand teacher of Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, he says, the ayah in the Quran is, يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قمتم إلى الصلاة فاغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم إلى المرافق. Right, that believers, when you're ready to pray, then wash your faces and then wash your arms up until the elbows. He said, if I saw the Sahaba and Tabi'un when doing wudu only go up to their wrists, I would only do that, even though it's in complete contradiction of the ayah. But he said they're not gonna violate the ayah like that, right? So if they do it like this, they have to have a reason, even if they don't tell me the reason. So that's how we take the practice of the Salaf and the Sahaba and the Tabi'un. One other caveat to that is, who from that caliber and generation is doing it? If it's a Tabi'i who studied with like one Sahabi, like 5 hadith, that's not the same rank as, Ibrahim al-Nakha'i, who everybody agrees is from the most knowledgeable, most pious of the Tabi'un. Like there's a different rank. There's no doubt a different rank. And so, or if he went against 30 of the other Tabi'un, okay, maybe he just messed up and there's something else to keep in mind there. That makes sense? Muhammad Bardini?
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. I just had a question. So when the Jews kiss the Prophet ﷺ's like hands and feet, or like when the Sahaba kiss the Prophet's hands. What? So you're saying when you said it becomes an issue when? And also, is it are you saying it's part of the culture, not the religion? Or I just had a question I misunderstood.
So if there were some companions or some of the Jews that did kiss the hands and feet of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam never taught that, and nor did the bulk or the senior of the Sahaba do that. And so in that sense, if it's things like that are done out of love, then again, no problem. But it shouldn't become a religious expectation of it is, wajib, or it is, sunnah mu'akkada to do that. That's where it becomes an issue. But if it's in our culture, the norm, the way to show respect in our culture is to do this, then yeah, no problem. That makes sense?
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Jazakallah khair.
Oh, yeah, Yusuf?
Yeah, similar to that question. So I mean, I'm asking because I'm trying to understand how to understand some of these things. But there's like scholars or shiuch that people praise, right? And whether they give them specific special titles or whatever it is, that they look at them with a very high, you know, status, and then I'll see videos of like said scholar like walking with his hand out and like just like having people kissing it. And I'm not necessarily saying that it's bad. I don't know, but but there's something right that it just comes off. I have that natural instinct that like something feels like it, odd with that. So to this whole point of like, is it something that's rooted in our religion? Like when you see someone that is so well respected for their knowledge or whatever it is, and then there's things like that. Like, how do you? Is that should that be looked at as a negative thing, or I just don't understand how when I see something like that, it's just kind of confusing to me.
No, I totally understand. A lot of that has to do with our culture and American Islam. I don't mean American Islam in a weird, wishy-washy, modernist way. Like there is a way that we treat and respect, our scholars here, which is very different than the way it's done, in other places. And in those places, that's just for some people, that's just the norm. Or even if it's not, this is the way these people show respect. And so I will not, deprive them of that. For example, weird celebrity, culture in, America is, I don't know. I'm sure there are some people like, the scholars here, I'm going to rent out, like a $200,000 car and, drive him in this, whatever, like a part of like, if a scholar comes like, listen, I realize you probably went out of your way to get this. It's a matter of practicality of either they are very principled in one sense, like, I do not approve this. I do not want this. Do not waste your money like this. Or another way is, I understand you did this. And what are you going to go return the car right now? I'll just accept it because that's what you did. That's how you want to show your kindness and your way of, respect. Fine. And so in some cultures, if that is their norm of either they're like, listen, I kiss the hands of all my teachers, and you know what, my students do that to me, then okay. Or this culture, that's what they do. That's how they show respect. If I tell them no, they're gonna think I'm being disrespectful back to them. And so just again, keeping culture very keeping the difference of cultures very, what's the word I'm looking for? Just at the forefront of our minds and understanding and knowing that that's, different.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and I think the car comparison is some of them that helped. Thank you, but I don't, again, it's not necessarily people allowing, I guess, people to kiss hands, but maybe I've seen a couple clips, maybe I'm generalizing, but like where they're literally walking out with their hand just sticking out like through a group of people. So that, so, yeah. But again, maybe I'm just, that was a bad example and that's not how the guy is, or I don't know. It just, I've just seen a couple clips and just kind of just threw me off, I guess. But that makes sense what you're saying.
I feel it, and I've seen that too. But again, I think that's because in our culture, we're very used to you're either going to have a very sincere person who tries to kiss the hands of their teacher, or they're jokingly doing it, and in either case, the teacher will like just rip their hand out. And so we're so used to that that seeing the opposite is just such a culture shock for us. Well, like think about it, like if there was 10 people there and the guy was just like salam alaikum, salam alaikum, salam alaikum, salam alaikum, salam alaikum, salam alaikum, we wouldn't bat an eye. Or there was 10 kids just pat on the head, pat on the head, pat on the head, pat on the head, or like, squeeze the cheek, squeeze the cheeks, like we wouldn't bat an eye. And so in the same way, we have this weird relationship with kissing of the hands. Again, that's just not in our culture. That's not the way we do things here. And that's why. If somebody here did that, that's like born and raised in America, and like something like if I started doing that, like Jack Naman would probably come and smack me upside the head. But if that's that norm, that culture, then we shouldn't criticize or even feel weird about for them to have their culture.
Yeah, no, thank you. That makes sense. And I guess that part of my question was like, is this something that's frowned upon in the religion too? Which it doesn't seem like it is. So
no,
that makes sense. Okay, Jazakallah.
Naji, I'll get to you in 1 second, but it's like that's why you find very principled, level-headed, very knowledgeable scholars who are always very keen to understand differences in culture. And they will not give judgments about other cultures, other norms, unless it's in clear violation of the Quran and Sunnah. Like an example of that, I'll say this from his perspective of where someone mistakenly, says something about culture when they really shouldn't. Sometimes, you'll find some more haughty, sorry, maybe that's a bad word, some very, energetic, not absolute expert scholars from like, India and Pakistan who are like, what, men that, shave their chest hair are like feminine, and, part of being a man is, having like, body hair and things like that. It's like, you can say that for your culture, but literally drive like 3,000 miles like north to, China or east to like, Burma, Malaysia, Laos, Vietnam or Japan. Get a dude who has literally not a single hair off of his head and eyebrows and eyelashes, who could probably like poke you with the finger and like knock you out. So don't talk about like body hair is manly when like somebody who's like a straight like martial arts expert from like 3 countries over can literally knock you out by like looking at you. So don't make those cultural judgments. Najia?
Sorry, this is kind of a tangent, but I think I might have missed it. But did you say that the fasts of Shawwal are bid'ah? Or
there are some scholars who didn't like them, didn't take those fasts because they didn't see any of their teachers doing it.
Okay. But is it wrong if you do it?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
Like the Hanafi school say, Abu Hanifa had this dislike. He had this dislike because out of worry that people would think, oh, Ramadan becomes 36 days. But nowadays, literally nobody thinks Ramadan is 36 days. And that fear is non-existent. But originally, you can imagine, kind of like what Hannah was saying, like if this becomes a norm, you're going to get into a society where that's it, everybody just 30 days of Ramadan, Eid, 6 days. And it just becomes like a cultural furrow, that's why.
Okay. Oh.
They kiss his hands surprisingly, he will give back his students.
Yeah, like there's some culture where like like if you shake hands with somebody, and then like then they'll put your hand on your heart, So like there's one kid who always does that to me, In response, I'll shake his hand and then I'll do like this whole thing, And he's just like, what is going on? Why are you doing this? Exactly. I don't know what the original practice is. My assumption is that I've shook your hand and now I'm like rubbing your hand on my heart as tabarruk, right? But that becomes so normal that 95% of people that do that, it's just a habit. Just like, or
You see them, you say, not like this, and out of like, respect.
yeah, that's what I said. I don't have an issue with it. Huh? The
Well, women do it because to me, like,
well, yeah, to men, women is different. Yeah, that's not what I'm. That's not what I'm doing. Yeah, and we covered this in year one, but right, the sunnah when saying salam to somebody is that to verbally say it and gesture, and to make a gesture. So some hand movement with salam. Don't do a without saying anything. Like if you're gonna do some hand gesture, do talaffuz of salam even if they can't hear you. Okay, Zayd.
Salam Sheikh. I apologize for any background noise, but I had a quick question regarding like in Pakistan, Indian culture, there's also this thing where like people expect you to bow your head so they can touch the top of your head as part of like the greeting. I'm not sure if you experienced that, but I was just wondering, that to me seems very
Oh, you're good
wrong.
Gujarati.
What's that?
You're good Gujarati. Are you talking about like Juke Salam, like what the head of bodies do?
Yeah. I've experienced that not with my family, but with others.
It's like we don't we don't do that. Again, those are things that are again a part of culture. You'll have some people who, when they get religiously inclined, they'll be like, "Oh, look, like Juke sounds like you do like inhina, you like go down a little bit. It's like, oh, look at these Muslims. They're copying the Hindus who would like bow down and like touch the feet of their parents. So they're doing it like halfway."
Yeah. Okay.
I specifically remember I had one teacher who really didn't like that because like you're doing inhina, you're bowing to them. He was like, you can't even if you've got a child in karate, you can't bow to your sensei, whatever. And then I saw this very teacher when he greeted both his mom and mother-in-law. I don't mean this as a diss, but I'm saying again, it's understanding culture. Like he held his mother-in-law's hand and like went like this like 3 times and did the same thing to his mom. I'm not criticizing that. I'm not saying there's a problem with that. But you can't say that and then say if somebody goes like hello, like that's how is this borderline shirk? And like you doing like a full like 75% ruku or not. Intention needs to matter. If this is just a sign of respect and they can touch the top of my head, I don't think there's an issue with that.
Okay. Jazakallah khair.
Yeah. No. What I'm saying is you can't do that and then say something 50 times less is not okay. While saying that this is okay. You know what I mean? I'm like this particular who I love to death. I love this teacher to death. But like when he would greet his like mom would go like this and like kiss her hands. But then I remember him saying, at least in some circumstance, like don't even like do like a 30% bow, but it's like that doesn't add up. Like there's not that doesn't to me that doesn't seem consistent. Again, as long as the intention, I'm not bowing to you, I'm not doing sajda to you, I'm not doing inhina. I'm literally just this is a way in this culture of showing respect without any religious connotation. Nothing close to sajda. This is not ruku' at all. Yeah, I wouldn't see an issue with that. I'm assuming both of you, your questions are answered. If is not, you can raise your hand again. Oh, yeah, Najee again. No? Okay.
It was an accident.
Got it. Anything else on this? Let's just quickly finish this. Yeah.
Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, exalt the elderly, Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Imam Abu Ya'la and At-Tabarani, rahimahullah, in Al-Awsat, reported that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, start with the notables, or he said with the elders.
Either he said kabbir kabbir, and we'll see that narration later on. Then or ibda'u bil kubara أو bil akbar أو al akabir, sorry, and kabbir al kubra fi sin. Like treat him with respect. Treat him with respect. Again, they're from South Africa, so word usage should always be kept in mind. With the two brothers, and the story's going to come later. Okay, let's just pause here. I need somebody to volunteer to do the Afghar explanation for next week. Anyone? Who do we have from last year? Faiz, Abdul Samad, Dania, Muhammad, Yusuf, Zaid. No volunteers? Okay. AR, right? UMAR?
Oh, yeah.
Anything else? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we're in, yeah.
I was talking about in your work in general, but in terms of like doing, I guess, like programs like because it's history and it's like I personally I don't know how effective that is because of either how the home environment works and I don't know if it's like much benefit actually my or like region or things that they wouldn't really know explaining to like a 7-year-old guy. I don't know how effective that is. I don't know like I don't want to
Got it. Let me pull something. No, we're not. Intention is the main thing. If the goal is to provide a place for kids who want to celebrate Halloween to not engage in those broad practices, it's good and should be done. On the other hand, if it just becomes a Muslim Halloween, then it should be avoided.
what's the thing of person? If your intentions are good, but it's supposed to be probably.
Good. It would be best for the masjid to have more programs like these so that they don't become a masjid Halloween tradition. I feel like it depends on the age range. You go and tell like 5 to 7-year-olds, so Halloween comes from Hallows Eve, and there's pagan roots because there are people who used to worship dead people. Like the 5-year-olds would be like,
The local do the program from 5 to 7 to 10, and I was like. What I said at that time was that I don't think it's effective, but I just want to make sure I knew that anything was happening.
if somebody's like under 8, this is just like it's gonna be so confusing. We're doing shirk at the masjid, basically. Like it's gonna be so confusing, no doubt should that be said to the older kids, but still I think it should be broached in a very mature, feel weird thing, but open-minded way, in the sense of I remember I had a discussion with some of my students from Saturday class, like what I guess like 10 years ago at this point. And one student was just like fighting back. He's like, no, but nobody does this as a pagan ritual anymore. You may do it as a pagan ritual, but I didn't know any of this. Nobody thinks about this, right? Is that a valid point? I mean,
So why
I'm not going to say it's not an invalid point. It's something to be kept in mind, but probably still better to be avoided. I don't know. Maybe we can broach this subject again in 175 years. I don't know. I don't know. But that's what I'm saying. It should be done in a way where it's not. Because I feel like when we tell children you don't do this because this is based off of a pagan ritual, that the vast majority of society does not cling to that, then they might very well make the claim, rightfully so, you're just bringing up old roots that nobody thinks about anymore. Right? So if it's, I would say, mention it in passing, like, this is a background, this is why it's best to be avoided, we don't really want to engage in that, and multiple other reasons, as opposed to just being like, this, the only reason why we're not doing this is because it's pagan and it's still pagan today, and everyone that does it is pagan. I think that's.
So maybe avoid October, you can do it in other months of the year, and then the whole month you just don't do anything, because to me, it's still wearing a custom. Like, that was one of the hardest things I had to raise my kids doing, because everybody in the mama and my family was doing it. I'm like, we're not going. So it was hard, but now my kids looking back at it, they tell me straight to my face, Mama, that's the practice which I love with the dark. We're not yet dress them up, because it's still a costume. If you put a costume, you are being something else, painting your face, doing all these God knows what. So I don't know,
what would be best is, if we're not reactionary, the masjid just has like 4 times a year. Just like we do something like once a quarter. That's just, let your kids come, carve apples or watermelon, go roll around in hay, go play with animals, like just whatever it is that kids want to do that seems seasonal, or that are associated with like Christmas and Easter and all. Just do generic things throughout the year, so they always have access to it, and that it doesn't become like a weird Muslim sunnah of doing a Muslim version of these pagan things.
similarly in hardship when it's we wrap gifts, right? But then some people went to the extent of, instead of putting like a tree, like Christmas tree, they put a palm tree. I've seen that, I found.
But like it's one of those things where it's like in and of itself, it's like there's nothing wrong with it. But then it's like, if this becomes a practice, if the people start thinking, oh, this is how we do it, then it like quickly.
That's exactly what I said, like, if we go into something new, that's eventually like, just think about it, like somebody does it, they put a palm tree, I kid you not, like a palm tree, just, but it's not the tree, but it's the palm tree with the gifts, or on the tree, and they do like the glove with like the moon and the star instead of, so how is that any different than Christmas, even though it's so now we're bringing something new to the religion, that's just because we're dying so much to practice or something, and now we're introducing that to our Islamic religion, so.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I wouldn't, I don't think that that's to a level for an individual to be like, what you're doing is clearly inappropriate or haram or innovation, but I would say don't do this because it can lead to that. Where that thing in and of itself, I would argue, is not okay. But if it happens the second time, the third time, then that's where the issue comes. And so don't do it in the first place, because this is not, if you institute and bring these practices and tie them to religiosity or bring in other religious things, and it can be very, yeah. Yusuf, and then Najia, and then Rabia.
So I mean, alhamdulillah, I'm not interested in Halloween, and alhamdulillah, my daughter is never gonna celebrate, inshallah.
Like, I don't do shirk at all, alhamdulillah.
No, but I'm just curious. I'm just curious.
نعبد الأصنام. Sorry.
I'm just curious, because like you just answered another question about Shawwal, in that, you know, they were saying it was bid'ah because people maybe thought that it was part of Ramadan, but now no one thinks it's part of Ramadan, so now nobody thinks it's bid'ah. I guess with this too, like
Nobody, the majority.
okay, sorry, yeah, bad wording,
Still,
but
like the people who are like, I follow Abu Hanifa down to the bone. I follow
yeah,
Imam Malik down to the bone. They don't do it. I think a good chunk
okay,
of Madhab also doesn't do it.
okay, but that concept of like, okay, there's not like a confusion about whether it's bid'ah or not, right? The general public doesn't think it's part of Ramadan. I mean, whether it's part of Ramadan, right? Is it not? Like, can't you use kind of the same argument with this? Like, I don't think most people that celebrate Halloween, you know, no, but again, this is just maybe I'm wrong, but it just feels like it's the same kind of argument. On the other hand, although I don't want to argue for Halloween, but that like most people don't look at it as a pagan thing. Most people don't look at it, you know, with any of the negative connotations. So why can you not use the same argument?
Just, I'm not putting you down, but if you heard me correctly, I'm kind of open to what you're saying. It's just the fear of what it can become.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay. Yeah.
like, you know, in all seriousness, if a Muslim family was to celebrate Halloween, I do not see it like you're doing shit. They're not. They don't think they're doing it. I don't think they're doing it. Will somebody say you are? Yeah, sure. Some people are. But I think for me, it's more so don't do this. This is not, it's one of those things where this is not how we do it. This is not the way we should do it. These are not customs we should bring in, because if this happens with this, 100 years later, you're going to do the same thing with Christmas. 100 years later, you're going to do the same thing with Easter. You know, like, and so it's less about Halloween itself. It's more so just about a broader thing, about how do we deal with, you know, all these external things and maintaining a kind of, you know, Muslim identity. If there was no fear of losing a Muslim identity, I'd have no problem with it, right? Or sorry, I'm not going to say like that. In theory, there could be some practices that we haven't done, but is a norm of America. And by us doing it, we don't lose any of our religious identity. In theory, I wouldn't have an issue with that. You know, like yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, no, you're right. I mean, the example I gave was just one, and you're right. Even if you do use that mentality to apply, I see your point of the like the larger problem of celebrating other holidays, and that makes sense. Alhamdulillah, that you answered it. So thank you.
Sure, Nadia.
Okay. So I just wanted to share my personal journey with Halloween. So like for me, like I mean, I grew up, I used to dress up just because it's like it wasn't considered anything bad. And like, you know, we did trick-or-treating, and then you go to high school, and you know, then you stop dressing up and like whatever. And then like when I had my daughter, I did dress her up initially like when she was younger, just because I thought it was cute. But then she started going to Islamic school, and then she said that she was like, oh, I shouldn't be dressing up for Halloween or going trick-or-treating. And that was like, I was like, well, if she's saying it, then I won't like push it. And so then I stopped. But then her friends at school, some of them would, and then she asked me about it. And then I was like, you know, some Muslims do some things, and then some Muslims don't do other things. We have friends that, you know, like don't wear hijab and stuff like that. It was kind of like that. But it's just interesting. I never like brought up like the whole pagan rituals and stuff like that. With her, I mean, she's 6, but
yeah, I don't think anybody should.
But like, I mean, yeah, it just is it. I guess, yeah. That's I just wanted to share that because I think like because growing up here and like being in the public school system, I think it's just like all those holidays are kind of like, you know, you're surrounded by it. Like you can't like not like, so, alhamdulillah, like now Afia's in Islamic school, and I see like she doesn't even know what Valentine's Day is. Like she didn't even know what the day was because, but when I remember in elementary school, like you always get those like candies and those Valentine's Day cards and all those things. Like I feel like it's just a different environment.
Yeah.
I have similar story to Nadia. My kids were
used to go to a public school. And I've never like let them dress up on Halloween, but they go trick or treat, and now they're grown up, like they're in university and stuff, but they don't anymore like it or anything. I don't think it's something that has to do with religion. I think they used to love going, just getting candy. It's fun, it's fun, not dressing up, they don't care about dressing up, it's about just, so I don't think it has something to do with Aqidah or religion. That's my way of seeing it. Right now, when we moved, I used to live in Netherlands, when we moved here, Diamond Bar, most of our neighbor are Asian. No one puts anything for Halloween. Like I have the youngest here, 13 years old. He's like, none of our neighbors gonna give us candy. I said, no neighbor. Come to that. We moved to Islamic school and to a neighbor that don't even put anything for Halloween. That helps.
Allahumma arina al-haqqa haqqa warzuqna ittiba'ahu wa arina al-batila batila warzuqna ijtinaba. May Allah show us the truth as truth and allow us to follow it, and show us falsehood as false and allow us to stay away from it.
Like for me, I used to take my kids to that night, the 31st, was the day they can get any candy they want. Let's go to Walmart. You guys buy the big packs, I'm fine with it. We're not trick or treating. So I used to do that. That's me personally. So you have to go. I'm gonna come to that.
She's not trick or treating.
Put my kids in the costume when they were under 5, a one-time life experience. And the rest of the kids stay in the car, and that kid will go down with a trick or treat. And that's it. And I said, you did it, so you can never say you didn't do it. And that's it. Once you all ding dong. And then from there, we do Walmart trips. So that was my personal. And I respect everybody's personal choices. I'm just saying that it can be done. And similar to Allah and similar to Najwa, my kids would ask, Mama, why are these people, and they're like extended family, doing like Easter? Why are they doing Christmas? Because are they Muslims? You know? And I have to answer the hard question.
In Lebanon, may Allah, protect all of them. Muslims straight up celebrate Christmas in Lebanon. Like wait, what? I thought we're that's the wrong religion. Yeah, but I'm very, yeah. That's what in all of this, to make my point clear, I may conceive of leniency if others do it by way of not saying what they're doing is shirk or pagan. At the same time, I don't know if I want to say it's okay. I'll leave it at that. There's a difference between I understand what you're doing is not shirk, or I agree that you don't think it's shirk, so it's not shirk. I don't think it should be done. That's for me, and because it can lead to, okay, well, we do this, so why can't we do this? We do this, why can't we do this? And it's not only that, but then when they become parents, like I did it, so we can do it. And then their children, they may have been like, we only do Halloween, Christmas, Easter, straight shit. With their kids, we just do Halloween. But now, then their children are going to bring it on, no, but we want to do Easter. And like, fine, that's it, but definitely not Christmas. Then that child will be like, okay, we only do Halloween, we do not do Christmas. And then children will say, we're not Christian, we don't celebrate Easter, let's do Christmas too. Like that's, thing to also keep in mind. Well, I'm saying, Dani, you also have your hand up? And put it down. Did she leave? Oh, she's right there.
Assalamualaikum, Sheikh. Yeah, sorry. I was just gonna add that for Halloween, like an extra added level that makes, like, I don't know, just makes extra sense why we shouldn't celebrate it is because it's literally celebrating like witchcraft and devils and like, I don't know, for me, I don't understand why I would want to introduce that into my home. Like I'm trying to keep that stuff out of my house. But I don't know, to me that's just like a way to reason with it. And then also a thing that Sheikh Ahmed said is like, for example, like trick-or-treating. Like when I was younger, I used to harmlessly, yeah, 1 second, Mama. Like I would go trick-or-treating and my parents are both like considered like on the more religious side, but they're like, okay, whatever, like just so you guys can get candy. And we had like a whole bunch of Muslim neighbors that like we would just go as a group. But like I understand now that there's like kind of like you have to like be more intentional with that kind of stuff. Like Sheikh Ahmed was saying, like I wouldn't want to teach my daughters to go and like knock on a stranger's door. Like that's not like like why would you ever teach your kids that? Which that hearing that made sense to me too. So I
Yeah,
don't know, just random thoughts, I guess.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, I don't know if this is fear mongering, but I feel like there's multiple stories every year of people putting in like needles or spikes or crazy things into like candy and things like that. It's like, yeah.
Teach your kids to, when you live in a society that a lot of its concepts is built on peer pressure, how to stand up and how to say no. And you building character, you're not building like, you gotta follow. You have to teach them how to be a leader. Because then what is the difference in your follow? Where is your well, you know, you have to learn how to say no. Because then if you say yes to Halloween, then you have to say yes to a date, and you have to say yes to drinking in the movie, and you have to say yes to watching something that you don't approve of. I just feel like this whole concept, it's not just about Halloween, but it's about everything that when you live in a Western society that can come under peer pressure. Not only teenagers have pressure, peer pressure, parents have peer pressure. And that's your ultimate test. Like, are you gonna do things for your children because that's the way the society presents itself? And that is harder when your circle, and I mean your circle, like your family, nieces and nephews, do that, and then a few of you say, no, we're not doing that. And there's a battle. You have to, even with family, but you have to say no.
Yeah, no, 100%.
This one really is fun.
Yeah.
So first thing, I went to public school where my parents were very strict, no costume, no trick or treating, none of that. But I really felt, I think, I guess the pressure, not the pressure, kind of like, it was like 2 years ago. And it was, I think Saturday was before, so we had 3 p.m. And you know, the kids were having a hard time. But I really wanted to do it to get candy. We were giving them alternative food. But I remember Monday was the 31st, and I had class at 7. Besides, I'm going to walk in and go at 11. And my professor was the CFO of Disney, so he brought in like a lot of Disney.
Wait, what? Your professor at Cal State Fullerton is the CFO of Disney?
Yeah. It's like
Okay.
so he brought in a lot of
All
Disney vibes. And I remember that day he was like, you guys, you don't have to go trick or treating, well, a lot of candy and like a lot of time. And I remember I didn't eat dinner that day before going to class. I was like really hungry. It was like a 3 hours. And the thing right in front of him, he had all this stuff. And he had a nut taco mix. I don't know that it looked really good. But I remember those 3 hours were the hardest, especially because I didn't send it back. I'm gonna do it with higher benefits, better alternatives. But I remember I loved it so much.
Yeah, and then maybe 2 more comments, then we'll read this, and if anyone else has anything. There's also an aspect of, you know, these events and then the related consumerism to that, not the pre-consumerism. I think we're all okay with that. Like, you know, something that comes to mind is, you know, one of my relatives is like, I will not even buy the discounted chocolate after because it's only discounted because of that. So by doing that, I am participating. But, yeah. Huh? Oh, inshallah. This is just a general thing on bid'ah that came up in Usul al-Sarakhsi. Hanafis, like Malikis and probably Hanbalis, are very opposed to bid'ah in places of public practice, because we are very big on, you know, salaf-derived sharia. Kind of what we were talking about before about what the tabi'un did is how we practice. Bid'ah is opposite of sunnah, tariqa masluka fi din, the ongoing practice of ritual through how the salaf, the sahaba, the tabi'un, the tabi'un practiced it. Sunnah is for the reason of sunnah is why you forbid evil. So if something is becoming public practice, but is not sunnah, it is istihqaqul lawm, is worthy of being blamed and criticized. So things like that, our imam shouldn't always recite Surah Al-A'la in the first unit of Witr in Ramadan. So that somebody may think, that's why sometimes you hear questions, and maybe you've had it, or as maybe now you hear from people, oh, like, what do I recite in Maghrib? It's like, what do you mean, what do you recite in Maghrib? You recite Quran. No, like, what surahs do I recite? Recite whatever you want, but there's some people who, it's just, in Fajr, I recite this and this. Zuhr, I recite this and this. In Asr, I recite this, and it just becomes so formalized. Or doing wuquf outside of Arafah, 6 days of Shawwal, or Qunut and Fajr, right, to ensure the masajid are places where sunnah is upheld and non-sunnah is not practiced. Because it's less that these things are an issue, but it's what does society pick up? You know, like every day, less, not because I don't want to do it. I still do Qunut and Nazila and Fajr, but Hanafis only say to do it for 30 days. The Prophet only did it for 30 days. But an aspect is, if you do something long enough, it will become ingrained in the normal practice of society. Ensure the masajid are places where sunnah is upheld and non-sunnah is not practiced. Some Hanafis have even said, if a Shafi'i does, regular qunut and fajr, you just sit down out of showing your mukhalafa of the non-sunnah. According to this, Shafi'is were the opposite. They're very hadith-based. We're not really into what the Sahaba and Tabi'un did. This is why the Shafi'is were very related to Tasawwuf and Sufism and, Junayd al-Baghdadi. But Hanafis were not into Tasawwuf. They were into Zuhud and personal piety, but not the branch of Tasawwuf, rather Zuhud from, Akhlaq and things like that. Because they did not prioritize the practices, meaning the Shafi'is, they did not prioritize the practices of the Salaf, the way the Hanafis and Malikis did. Whatever is not against a hadith is 100% okay. So unless if the hadith does not prohibit it, then it's okay. So if moving is okay and dhikr is okay, then moving in dhikr thus becomes okay. Perhaps Naqshbandis, who are, like East Turkmenistan and, Iraq in that, they're probably fiqh-wise, primarily Hanafi, we're not too into group dhikr and moving. That's why they have a lot of, silent dhikr and the like. Or hadra, where everyone is kind of moving. Or, well, that's in religious places, but qawali and the like, which is outside of religious spaces, you find originating in other schools, and then perhaps some Hanafis bringing it in more so out of perhaps peer pressure, and then doing istihsan, saying, you know what, we know this is not okay, but it can lead to bigger problems, so we'll make it okay. And Shafi'is are big on bid'ah hasana. This is an innovation, but it's okay. Whereas the Naqshbandis will always try to prove, okay, this thing that we're doing, how do we derive it from the ahadith? How do we conclude it from the practice of the Sahaba and Tabi'un? Whereas Shafi is just like, group dhikr, yeah, what's wrong with it? Hanafis are more so, okay, well, what, we pray in congregation, and the Prophet saw, groups of Muslims, doing like studying together, and, majtama'a qawmun fi baytin min buyutillah yatluna kitab Allah wa yatadarasuna, so they're doing it in a group, etc. And also next one is, have no problem with silent dhikr, because already when we pray salah, if you're not the imam, you don't recite behind the imam. But no, the world has been, Sufisized and Shaficized and, all that stuff. Early Shadhilis were not into dancing, but now are maybe not, dancing. And they got the whole whirling dervishes and, that whole, separate. Hadra is one thing, and then dancing is a whole other, thing. Perhaps that's why the creation of dargahs and zawiyas allowed people to do extra spiritual practices outside of, the masjid area. And early classical Hanafis are very hard pressed to ever use bid'ah in a positive sense. When Umar used it for tarawih, is linguistic. That's why they were very big on adhan. No doubt is sunnah. Is it wajib? Nobody will say it's wajib. Is having a public jama'ah wajib? No. But Hanafis in our books of fiqh say, if you don't hear adhan, go and attack them. It's like, what kind of Islam are they doing if they're not doing key fundamental? It doesn't mean they're saying to attack Muslims, but as kind of like a mindset in understanding the practice and maintaining sunnah. Or do they not have public jama'ah? Even though these are sunnah. But by sunnah, they mean this is communal practice that we have adopted and inherited generation from generation. And bid'ah is adding to public practice or confusing people about public practices. Right? So, particularly, so it's very important for us as students of knowledge, and scholars and people that answer questions, this mindset of, okay, like you're reciting Quran because somebody passed away. Why? Don't just let people just, somebody died, recite Quran. Why? Like, what are you doing? Are you gifting them the reward? Are you getting reward for yourself? Are you doing it so that you recite and now your dua is more worthy to be answered? Are you doing it to console yourself? And what is the reason why you're doing this? Instead of just saying the community does it, whatever, everybody move on. Because nobody knows. You ask people why they do half the things they do. I don't know. Not because, oh, this is the hadith in Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim. Why do you pray? Allah told me to pray. Why do you fast? It's good to fast. Why do you do 6 days of Shawwal? Oh, because you get the reward of fasting the whole year. Like, there's general things, even if you're not able to quote particular text, but like, why are there 2 adhans at Jumu'ah? That's just the way. That's sunnah of the Khulafa, of Uthman radiallahu anhu, and then even after. Right, so things like this of, if I go to a grave, do I recite Quran? Why am I doing it? If I make dua, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? How am I doing it? So even we'll end on this unless there's any other questions, but something that I think the American Muslim scholarly community needs to start to contend with, because although I do it, but it's something that is a fear of becoming an innovation, is you explain how to do Salatul Janazah, okay. I feel like that's reasonable. Then you pray Salatul Janazah. And then what do 95% of Imams do after Salatul Janazah? And then you make dua. What was Salatul Janazah? That's where you're supposed to make dua. Why are you making dua after Salatul Janazah? I do that too, but if there's a human expectation. I don't want to get that technical, but I'm saying after the janazah, there is dua, right? And that's, people expect it. And also because, again, our community is very lacking in the sense of people don't know, people like to hear dua. And so, like, I don't, like, half the people probably didn't say anything. But it's in theory, it's okay to do that. But if 5 years from now, somebody's like, oh wait, that imam didn't make dua after Salatul Janazah, you think it's not so teaching the community of, like, we will pray Salatul Janazah. After that, for anybody that doesn't know, I will make dua in English, just so people that don't know this is not a sunnah. Highlight, like, teaching people that. So what I'm doing is not what the Prophet ﷺ did. It's okay to do, but it's not what he did, and so don't think he did it. Yeah. And lastly, again, just on the loved partnership between the Hanafis and Malikis, one of the most famous books of Al-Muwafaqat, somebody had a dream that he saw that he wrote a book, so I asked him, what did you name the book? And he said, أَنَّكَ وَفَّقْتَ بِهِ بَيْنَ مَذْهَبَيْ أَبِي الْقَاسِمِ وَأَبِي حَنِيفَةَ, that you, Ash-Shatibi, you joined between the madhab of Ibn al-Qasim, which is one of the main students of Imam Malik, and the school of Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah. So that's like this tied partnership between Hanafis and Malikis. We're very big on what did the Sahaba and Tabi'un do. You're there. Yeah. If you don't hear Fajr Adhan, you go. Because even if people are Muslim and they're praying Fajr, because, like, what? You need to be making the Adhan. You need to be having a Jama'ah. Anything else? I know there was a lot of tasawwuf in that last section on bid'ah. You learn and you grow and you explain it. Subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanallah al-azim, subhanaka wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Sallallahu ta'ala ala khayri khalqi Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsan ila yawm الدين wa ja'alna minhum. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I apologize. Also, last week, the whole thing about doctors and scholars, I think I was a little bit exaggerative. Doctors do know basic things. Maybe they're not experts in other specialties as you would not expect them to. Perhaps not all scholars are experts in every facet of every religious discipline. The experts are, but me, even if I give you an answer on, like, biomedical fiqh, it's not because I'm an expert, just because I'm quoting somebody else who said it. All right, something like that.